Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez appeared on The View, and it's really interesting because AOC actually has said that she's not endorsing Biden just yet, which means she's sort of one of the big players who stayed out of this. Maybe there's some other folks like Ro Khanna's of the world, but they're not as influential and as big name as AOC is. Don't have as much star power as she does. But she's sort of been pretty strong on this whole thing about pushing Biden leftward, and so she's been doing a lot of this stuff, which is pretty surprising. But here AOC is going to respond to a question from Joy Behar, and she's going to pretty much school her on what Joe Biden actually has to do.
Congresswoman, some progressives are suggesting that with Bernie out of the race, they'll vote third party. That would be a catastrophe, in my opinion. What do you say to those people? And also, part two, Biden has made some efforts to appeal to progressives, like lowering the eligibility age for Medicare to 60 and expanding student debt forgiveness. Is that enough?
I think. Thank you. Yes, I think, and I think that they're connected questions. As I think what's really important is that we do realize that at the end of the day, one of these two candidates are going to be elected president of the United States. It's either going to be Joe Biden or it's going to be Donald Trump. And I think it's important to, communicate some empathy. I know for a lot of people, this was not the outcome that they may have wanted, and this was not the choice that they wanted to make. But ultimately, when it comes to those two, I don't think it's particularly close in terms of what communities will be made more vulnerable. And I think but what I also think is really important is that the way to I think move in a unifying direction, as I said before, is that unity isn't a feeling, it's a process. And I think that that Biden can go further. I think that it's not necessarily enough. Lowering Medicare to 60 by 5 years is still more conservative than what Hillary Clinton proposed in 2016. Hillary was talking about lowering it to 50 4 years ago. And so I think that there's certainly room. I think that there's going to be room on issues like immigration, Puerto Rico, healthcare, climate change. And I think that it's healthy to do that. And I think what we shouldn't do is recreate this dynamic where we are kind of finger wagging and nagging people into voting because it's not a way of generating enthusiasm. I think one thing that we can do is improve the policies that we have as a party to tell young people, to tell all sorts of people, we see you and we have a plan for you and we're going to create hope for all sorts of communities in the United States.
So as you guys just saw there, AOC basically explains it to Joy Behar what needs to actually be done, because she's basically saying, oh, they're going to vote third party, it's going to be a disaster. First of all, I actually want to say that I don't agree with AOC where she says that, it's pretty clear which, how the different groups that are going to be marginalized between the two presidencies. I think that they're virtually this. I think they're the same exact groups. There may be some slight different extent to which they're marginalized, but I think it's very minimal and not enough to make someone want to vote for Joe Biden. And I think it would be sort of in a way where you want a real candidate. You kind of get tired of voting for the lesser of two evils and two neoconservatives. So I disagree with her. I genuinely am curious as to whether she believes that or not, because that's just something she has to say as a representative, a Democratic representative in the House. But I'm genuinely curious to know if she actually believes that. Just curious. But the most important piece there is not that. The most important piece there is where she basically explains that finger wagging at people who are not voting for Joe Biden is not going to get you to get those people to vote for Joe Biden. If you want those people to vote for Joe Biden, you would work for their vote. Now, first of all, I want to say these people are incredibly lazy. So all they do is scream at people on Twitter. Now, the Bernie Sanders campaign knocked on more doors, called more phones, and all of that stuff than pretty much any campaign in history by far. All right? They worked their ass off for the campaign. The Joe Biden campaign had default support that it never lost and therefore didn't have to do anything. Joe Biden did nothing. He didn't campaign. He hid from the press. He hid from the public. He didn't have any, campaign offices. He didn't even campaign on Super Tuesday. He literally said he was broke on the debate stage, at that Rona debate stage. He literally said it, and he said he still won because he didn't do anything to win. That's insane. So they're lazy because they've never done anything in their life to win. They don't phone bank. They don't knock on doors. They don't do anything. They're lazy as fuck. And so they're going to have to do something. And so they're just used to just Twitter fingers all day, pretty much, is what they're used to. And so what's really going on here is AOC's trying to explain to her, hey, doofus, you're whining about the people going third party. Wagging your finger at those people who are considering going third party is not a winning strategy. You need to ask yourself, why are those people going third party? The reason why those people are going third party is because you keep electing two neoconservatives, and when you elect two neocons, you're going to lose. That's what's going to happen because they're not going to come out and vote. So what's the logical step? Is the logical step to say, shame on you, that's just nonstop for 8 months? Or is the logical thing to say, oh, wait a second, this is a group of people I need to cater towards. What can I do to pull their vote? Easy answer. Pick Bernie Sanders as your vice president. Unfortunately, I would say adopt certain policies. Other progressives have said do that. I'm not buying it. I can't trust him. I just can't. Any policies that he pretends to pick up are fake because he's easily told us constantly to the death that he doesn't support Medicare for all. He went as far to say he would veto it if it made it to his desk. I'm not going to believe that guy if he picks up M4A because he's just lying. Same thing with anything else. That's the problem. So I'm not in that business. You got one chance. Pick Bernie because that's a guy who actually believes in progressivism. And if you really want my vote, then that's what you'll do. You care about defeating Donald Trump, right? That's your main thing, right? That's the main care that you have. So if all you care about is defeating Donald Trump, why does it matter if Bernie Sanders is the vice president? You tell me. Why does it matter to you if Bernie Sanders is vice president? Because that's all your thing is, right? If you wanted to beat Donald Trump, you would have a Biden-Bernie ticket because you would have a united Democratic Party with all age groups, all race groups voting for that ticket. You'd get the Latino vote, you'd get the young vote, you'd get the geezer vote, the corporate vote, all of that stuff. So Hillary, if she had picked Bernie in 2016, they would have swept the nation. They would have swept the nation, maybe. Not 100% sure, but I'm like 90% sure of that. With Bernie on the ticket, you'd pull out a lot of voters. But the thing is, and I want to flip this back on them, it's kind of what we need to do. They always say, oh, well, do you really want to defeat Donald Trump? First of all, I said, no, I don't care about taking out Donald Trump. But B, do you care about taking down Donald Trump? Because if you cared about taking down Donald Trump, you would actually try to get my vote. You're not trying to get my vote. You're trying to shame me into voting for your candidate. Okay? So AOC just completely educating and schooling them here on their bogus